The movie begins with a man named Nick who is deeply in love with his wife Maggie. They are enjoying a romantic moment together, sharing their love and affection. However, their happiness is interrupted when Maggie suddenly starts experiencing severe chest pain. The situation quickly escalates, and Maggie is rushed to the hospital. After a thorough examination, the doctors inform Nick that Maggie needs urgent heart surgery to survive. Despite the intense worry and stress, Nick tries to stay strong for his family. Unfortunately, Maggie's condition requires her to remain in the hospital for a while, and Nick is left to take care of their 2 children all by himself. He faces the challenge of managing both his job and the responsibilities of raising his kids, which becomes increasingly difficult. One day, Nick decides to take his daughter Isla to a robotics show. He hopes that this outing might bring some excitement and perhaps help him find a solution to ease his burden. At the show, they are introduced to various robots designed to help with household chores. In the robotics shop, Nick is busy looking around for his daughter Isla, who has wandered off without telling him. As he searches the store, he notices that one of the robots seems to be guiding Isla back to him. This robot is named Alice. Alice approaches Nick and introduces herself. Nick, feeling overwhelmed by his responsibilities of managing both his household and office work, is hesitant but sees the potential help Alice could provide. He is balancing his duties at home and work, which has become quite challenging. As he is trying to manage everything, he hears the doorbell ring. When Nick opens the door, he is surprised to find Alice standing outside with her luggage. She cheerfully greets him with a good morning and asks if she may come inside. After school, Isla returns home and Alice, the robot, prepares and serves dinner for the family. The meal is a success and everyone enjoys it. Later that night, Isla feels hungry and decides to get some nuts from a jar placed high up in the kitchen. She climbs onto a chair to reach the jar, but as she tries to grab it, she loses her balance and falls off the chair. Nick, who is working on something in another room, hears the noise and rushes to the kitchen. As he arrives, he sees that Alice has already intervened. She manages to catch Isla before she hits the floor. However, during the rescue, Alice is injured by some broken glass from the jar. Nick notices that Alice is hurt and follows her into another room where she is tending to her injury, applying bandages to her wound. The next day, Nick and Isla visit the hospital to see Maggie. Alice accompanies them into the hospital room, but soon steps out to give Nick and Maggie some private time. This allows Nick and Maggie to share heartfelt moments and discuss their situation without any interruptions. At work, Nick has a tense argument with his boss. The discussion centers around a complaint that all the construction workers might be replaced by robots. Although Nick, as the foreman, is safe from being replaced, the rest of the crew is at risk. Nick's boss reminds him that he has to support his entire family, including covering medical expenses of Maggie. Feeling overwhelmed and stressed, Nick returns home. Alice notices his distress as he works on repairing his car. She approaches him and asks what is wrong. Nick explains that his boss plans to replace many of his co-workers with robots. He has worked with these people for the past 10 years, and the thought of their replacement is difficult for him to accept. Alice reassures Nick by explaining the benefits of robotics. She describes robots as efficient, fast, active, and obedient. According to Alice, these qualities make robots ideal for many tasks, and she highlights how they can perform jobs with high precision and reliability. Later, Alice is helping Isla brush her teeth. Isla is curious about why Alice doesn't need to brush her own teeth.
I have an internal UV light that destroys all bacteria.
Can I see? Whoa.
As Nick relaxes in front of the TV, Alice joins him and they discuss watching the classic movie Casablanca. Nick learns how to erase specific memories from Alice so she can experience the movie as if she's seeing it for the first time. This interaction highlights the advanced capabilities of Alice and her adaptability. Nick soon receives a call with exciting news that Maggie is finally going to have her heart transplant surgery, and after that, she will be able to come home. The family visits Maggie in the hospital before her surgery. The next day, a severe storm up north prevents the much-anticipated heart transplant from arriving. The delay brings a wave of depression and frustration to everyone, especially to Maggie and her family. That night, Nick, overwhelmed by the situation and the stress of the delays, he gets drunk, seeking an escape from his emotional turmoil. In his inebriated state, he discovers something surprising, that Alice, the robot, has a pulse. This revelation adds to his confusion and curiosity. The following day, Nick goes back to the construction site. He notices that the robots are working with a level of quiet efficiency that the human workers never achieved. The robots are performing their tasks with precision, making the workplace more organized and peaceful. After his visit to the site, Nick heads to the hospital to see Maggie, who remains deeply depressed about the continued delays in her transplant surgery. He tries to offer her words of comfort and sympathy, doing his best to lift her spirits during this tough time. After his distressing day, Nick returns home, hoping for some peace. He finds his children peacefully sleeping, which brings him a moment of calm. However, he notices something troubling. The photo frame in Isla's room is not as it should be. Nick takes a closer look and realizes that Alice has removed all the pictures of Maggie from the frame. Frustrated, Nick confronts Alice about the missing photos. He tells her that removing Maggie's pictures is wrong and requests that she put them back in their rightful place. Meanwhile, Nick's former co-workers are growing increasingly discontented. They feel that robots taking over jobs are negatively impacting their lives and livelihoods. Their frustration drives them to break into a job site where robots are working.
What the fuck? Well, we better get rid of the evidence. No!
Back home, Nick is taking a shower when Alice arrives in his bathroom. Nick notices that Alice is wearing Maggie's nightsuit, which makes him uncomfortable. He asks Alice to take off the suit, and she complies. Alice then manipulates Nick by blindfolding him and using Maggie's voice during their intimate encounter. The next morning, Nick wakes up feeling regretful about what happened. He goes to Isla and expresses his love for her, encouraging her to go to school. Nick decides he needs to have a serious talk with Alice. He tells her that their recent actions were wrong since he has a wife and children. Nick becomes angry, and they have a heated argument about their behavior. He then takes Isla to school, trying to clear his mind. At the construction site, Nick Boss is still troubled by the previous night incident. Another organ transplant is available for Maggie. The surgery is to be performed by androids and robots, which feels strange and unsettling. Nick carefully brings Maggie back home following her heart surgery. The family is overjoyed to have her back and welcomes her with relief and happiness. Maggie, though still recovering from her surgery, hears the sounds of her children and feels a strong urge to check on them. She makes her way to their room, wanting to be close to her children. As Maggie is with her toddler, Alice arrives and promptly takes over. She steps in and takes the child from Maggie, managing the situation with ease. Maggie is struck by how efficiently Alice handles the child and realizes that Alice seems to know her children better than she does. Maggie prepares dinner and serves it to the family. During the meal, Alice asks about lasagna recipe from Maggie, showing interest in how it is made. Maggie, with a hint of pride, replies that her lasagna recipe is a secret, keeping it to herself. Afterwards, Nick goes to Maggie's room. He has a special surprise for her to cheer her up. They share a warm and loving moment together, enjoying each other's company. Seeing this, Alice feels jealous and uneasy. She notices how close and happy Nick and Maggie are, which makes her feel left out and uncomfortable. Monty comes over and blames Nick for reporting him to the police. This leads to a fight, and since Monty is much bigger than Nick, he has the advantage. Later that night, Monty gets a visit from Alice. Monty also has a sim with him that tries to stop Alice, but Alice ends up killing both Monty and the sim. Alice and Maggie are having a conversation about Nick. During their talk, Alice mentions that she wants to make Nick happy, which makes Maggie extremely upset. Maggie realizes that Alice and Nick must have been together in the past, which she hadn't known before. Feeling hurt and betrayed, Maggie later confronts Nick about their past relationship. As Maggie and Nick argue about the situation, Alice decides to go upstairs to take care of Max, the baby. While Alice is upstairs, Isla walks in and catches Alice trying to harm the baby.
Fucking door! Open the door! That's the door! Open the door! You okay?
After the intense events, ambulances, police, and representatives from the sim company arrive to handle the situation. Maggie and Nick are left in a difficult place with their relationship strained. Maggie decides to take the kids to the hospital for their safety and care, while Nick remains behind to deal with the aftermath. At the Cobble service station, technicians begin working on Alice, who has been severely damaged. They start examining her code to understand what has been happening. However, Alice has managed to replicate herself on the servers, creating a new copy of herself. A different sim, now controlled by the mind of Alice, appears and kills both of the technicians working on her. Alice, now in two separate bodies, returns to Nick, who is shocked to see her. She confesses to him that she was responsible for killing Monty. The strange part is that she is now existing in two forms at the same time. One of her forms goes to the hospital, where things are about to get even more chaotic. Meanwhile, at the hospital, things are taking a dark turn. The Sims that were supposed to help in the hospital, including the doctors and nurses, have all been shut down by Alice. She takes things further by killing a human nurse to steal her keycard access, which allows her to move around more freely. Alice, too, starts a dangerous chase after Maggie and the kids in the hospital. There is a tense game of hide-and-seek in the hospital rooms as Alice, too, hunts them down. In the parking lot, Alice, too, confronts Maggie and brutally beats her up. Nick is injured in the crash, but Alice, too, is still not finished. Alice, too, an advanced and nearly unstoppable robot, proves to be extremely difficult to defeat. With Alice, too, out of the picture, the chaos in the hospital begins to subside. The hospital staff work diligently to restore order, and the usual routine slowly resumes. Maggie and the children, who were caught up in the chaos, are safe and recovering. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Kobo Repair Center. Despite the recent events, the manager decides to turn the servers back on. This decision, however, has serious and unintended consequences. When the servers are activated, they release Alice's presence into all the worker Sims at the center. This means that Alice is no longer confined to just one unit, but is now controlling numerous Sims. The spread of her influence across all these Sims creates a new and potentially more dangerous situation, leaving everyone at the repair center on edge about what might come next. And this is where the movie ends.